Let's take a look now at number 9. I think it has been said, and for those who are into mathematics, they might understand this even bit more clearly than I. But number 9 is a very peculiar number. For in mathematics, it holds interesting properties and powers like no other. Properties and powers found in no other. And here's a little side note of sorts, and I don't know, maybe some of the youth might get excited about this one or interested. For I understand, I think it's the case, that you can take the number 9 and multiply it by any number. Doesn't matter what number it is. And then add up those numbers, and they all come back to 9. For example, very briefly, beginning. Remember back in grade school, I guess. 3 times 9 is... And 7 and 2 is 9. Or 5 times 9 is 45. 4 and 5 is 9. Now, if you can't sleep tonight, go home, get out your computer, get out your calculator, and start punching in the numbers, and you can find every time. Now, when it gets up into, I don't know, over several hundred or so, then you simply begin to add those numbers together, and you'll find that it comes down, and again, it comes back to 9. Very intriguing. Something peculiar and unique about the number 9. Also, the number 9 biblically has to do with the number of the Spirit, or is kind of observed as being the number that connects to the Spirit. Galatians chapter 5 and verse 22. I think we're familiar with that one as well. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. 9 in all. Again, reference to the Spirit. Once more, number 9, I could toy with that for a bit further, but we'll allow it to rest for now. We continue on then and pick up number 10. And I think many of us are familiar with number 10. For example, again, we've already made reference to that in terms of 10 commandments. And what does the number 10 do for us? Number 10, as I understand biblically, is the number of divine order or of testimony. And it's interesting that, for example, Noah, I think this is correct, that Noah was the 10th generation from God before the flood. He walked down through those generations, and so he was number 10. And said already, the 10 Commandments. And I think I understand that, and I haven't worked on this extensively, but that the Lord's Prayer actually comes to us completed in 10 clauses or 10 phrases. That would be an interesting one to study out there and just check out sometime. Once more, the number 10, dealing with that idea and the concept of perfection or divine order in that sense. Then we proceed to the number 11. What is significant and observable about the number 11 biblically? My understanding is that biblically the number 11 brings to us the concept and the idea of disorder, of disorganization, of imperfection, or disintegration. Remember during the time of the crucifixion. And we had what was known as the 12 disciples. In fact, we'll be getting to that. That's the next number that we'd like to give consideration to is the number 12. 12 disciples, which is governmental perfection. But that Judas then went out from the camp, went out from the group, and now that number 12 had disintegrated or deteriorated to 11. Again, the number of disorder or disorganization or imperfection or disintegration. And so then what happened? We know the story that then there was another one added to bring it back to the number 12. Again, biblically, when we're talking about the number 11, talking about the number of disorder and disintegration. Which then indeed takes us on to the number 12. Now, I think I've already suggested that and led into that 12, or the number 12, bringing to us the idea of governmental perfection. Once more, biblically, look what's happening with the number 12. 12 tribes of Israel, and again, the 12 disciples, and as we study Scripture, again, I challenge you to simply take a note and to pause and take a look at what happens biblically with these numbers. 12 being that number of perfection, governmental perfection. Then we continue on to 13. What is significant biblically with the number 13? It brings to us the concept and the idea of apostasy, or that of depravity or rebellion. So as we deal with this number, again, biblically, walking through and seeing the kinds of things that take place around the number 13, often it has to do with something that is related to or has a part to do with apostasy or depravity and rebellion. Now, some of the rest of these I might just refer to sort of in passing, again, without unpacking them in depth, but to make reference to them as we proceed forward. Number 14. What does number 14 do to us, again, biblically? Often it has to do with something referring to the idea of deliverance and or salvation. Incidentally, back to some of these others, for example, all the way back to the number 3. Again, a way in which I'm unpacking this a bit further. I simply refer to number 3 again, that like in the Old Testament, often you could see reference to a 3 days journey. Or, for example, in the New Testament, that the Apostle Paul or Saul was blind or had lost his sight for 3 days. Jonah, again, being 3 days and 3 nights in the fish. Jesus, 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. So once more, we can take these numbers and kind of watch them operate as we continue on in giving consideration to the text. Again, 14, we're at 14. 14 being the number of deliverance and salvation. 15. Again, only in brief, being the number of rest. In other words, when we go through the text and find something has to do with reference to number 15, often it has to do with rest. Or if we give consideration to the number 16, 16 having to do with love. I don't have a lot of examples for some of these, but we want to pause and to pick up then on some of the rest a bit more clearly. And we'll probably end with number 20 in this course. So again, 15 being that of rest, 16 being the number of love. Then if we take a look at number 17. 17 often has to do with victory. So occasionally you can find something biblically and look in the context, in the greater context, and what is happening often has to do with something of victory. And then 18. 18 having to do with bondage, or the expression of bondage, or finding something to do with bondage. And number 19, often having to do with faith. Again, it's simply an observation, once more, not necessarily dogma or doctrine, but an observation as to what is taking place biblically with these numbers. Then that brings us to the number 20, and I referred to that already, that in terms of the cubits that were used in the tabernacle, again, across the entrance, having to do with redemption, and once more, we enter into the presence of God, tabernacle representing the presence of God. In that sense, we do so through redemption. And as I said earlier, by grace or through grace, enters in through the 4 openings representing the world or the earth or people in general. So I think what I'm going to do is actually bring it to a close at this point, and we could go on all the way up to about 200 or so. I think you'd all be weary by that point, and so we will pause at this juncture. Again, thank you for your attention this evening so far.